That's Shad Gaines. Grandpa. That's how I do it.
Hopefully it's
Phone's gonna go dead. Can you get my plug in? Oh,
all right. We should be
so we can plug
up and running.
There it is, I bet.
We'll send you the link to Paul and everything
Alright.
once we get
It's live.
everything.
Sorry, I forgot. It's in the car.
We are live. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Little new here. We're doing this Zoom. I think Corey, can you see us on there?
Yep.
Okay, good to go. Welcome to Porch Time with your host Kevin Corey, live from JTH Construction Studio. Where tonight
Not from me.
we have Paula Selph joining us live in studio all the way from Florida, I believe. She is the mother of Army Staff Sergeant Ryan Knauss. He was 23. He was one of the 13 U.S. service members killed in the suicide bombing attack at Hamid Karzai International Airport in Kabul, Afghanistan on August 26th. Paula, we are just honored to have you in here tonight, and thank you so much for giving us your time. How's the weather down there in Florida? You look very comfortable, by the way.
I look silly. I'm sorry I didn't wear makeup. I was thinking this was a radio show only. So I am looking pretty rough, but it's very hot down here. So I've got my Mickey Mouse shirt on with my cowboy hat. Very uncouth.
No, not at all. You're fine. We're just happy to have you. We're trying to get this thing organized on this end. And the guy behind the mic's the dumb one. So just hang with me just for a minute. I apologize. Why did we not see these? There you go. All right. I think we're up and running now. All right. Paula, if you would, I know you've been on Fox News and other national shows. This is just Small Town USA here in the heart of America, and we're joined by Valita Fritchie, whose son, also Ryan, was killed in Afghanistan, and we've had her on a few times and discussed, her son and things that transpired. If you would, kind of walk us through and educate us a little bit on everything, if you would, about your son and how things went down that day.
Well, Ryan's name is Ryan Christian Knauss. I named him that because I wanted him to remember his Christian heritage. And I also named his oldest brother Tyler Christian Knauss. So Ryan and Tyler both came from a Christian home, and we're very grateful that they were able to be best friends growing up. So as they grew up, they played Army and they played it very well. They played it very well over the years. And both of them would have probably went into the armed forces, but Ryan decided for sure he was going to. So when he was 1 hour old, Ryan did a push-up, and we knew he was unique. He was 10 pounds, 2 ounces at birth. He was a whopper. And he was determined through the years that he was going to be in the armed forces from early on. The boys used to bring over friends all the time and play paintball and airsoft. And many of the boys are still recalling that are contacting us now, remembering the years where the boys would, they created like bunkers down at the pond area. They were amazing about wanting to have strategies for how to do being in the military well, for their own games. As Ryan grew older, I guess you've heard that in second grade, he wrote down he wanted to be a Marine. By the time he was in his pre-teens, going into teenage years, he wanted to go in the Navy SEALs. And by the time he got out of 8th grade, because I had him in Christian private schools all of his life, he looked at me in 8th grade and said, "Mom, I want to get out of this Christian bubble, and I want to go out there and face the real world. And I want to be able to go into a public high school and do junior ROTC. So there's no way I can do that in private school I'm going to have to go to this local school and I want to be able to do that. And I said, oof. So he had enlisted family friends to come over and have the mothers talk to me, and we'll all send them all as a group. And so eventually I agreed. And so Ryan attended Gibbs High School. In Gibbs High School, he went 4 years of junior ROTC, where he was in freshman year, he went almost anorexic because he was convinced he needed to build his body over that 4-year period. So he quit eating anything but vegetables and he just reduced down to nothing. And then he began to watch videos and he began to look at how he could build his body. And for 4 years in high school, he built his body and he began to weight train. He began to do so much more than just junior ROTC. He began to push. By the time he was a senior at 17 years old, he brought home a recruiter and he said, Mom, Dad, listen, this is my recruiter at school. And I want to go ahead and sign up to go into the Army. And I want to get you guys to sign off so I can do it early. And he said, so Mom, now listen to me. If you don't sign, the recruiter told me that I can divorce you as a parent. So you have got to sign or I don't know what I can do. So I looked at him in grief and I said, would you really divorce me if I don't sign this? And he said, Mom, you might leave me no choice. So I looked at him and I said, Ryan, your dad and I want you to go into armed forces. Are you kidding? He said, well, I want to be able to do what I want to do. And I want to be able to have control of my life. And I said, well, definitely go in the Army and let them tell you how it's going to be. And he sat there in disbelief because his dad and I sat there and signed the papers. And so Ron was like, this is too easy. This is too easy. What's the catch? We said, Ryan, we know that you were born to do this.
Right.
We know you're born to do this. We know that you want to do this. Also, during that time in his senior year, Ryan was interviewed by someone local in the school. And they asked him questions like, why do you want to go into the armed forces? And that interview was pretty impressive because Ryan's answers at 17 were, he did not want to be ordinary. He said, I don't want to be normal. All the kids in my class that they're graduating right now are going into their next phase of life, going to college. And he said, half of them don't even know what they want to be in college. He said, I know what I want to do. I know what I want to be. And he said, I'm ready to go. And so as he turned 18 in April, by May, he graduated from high school at Gibbs and he went to boot camp in May, shortly after, 2 weeks after he graduated or less. And that began his career in the armed forces. And
but he prepared for this his entire child life, it sounds like.
Entire life he prepared for this. His entire life was all about Army and learning how to do strategies with his brother. His entire career in high school was all about how to become bigger, better, faster. By the time he got to be 18 and went off to boot camp, he looked horrendous by the time he got done with basic training. But he looked at me and he said to me after basic training, he said, Mom, it was a piece of cake. He said, I know I lost weight. I know I looked kind of rough, but he said it was a piece of cake because I trained harder than they put me through.
That's
Ryan
right.
pushed himself. Ryan was incredibly hard on himself and other people as he was younger. And he was almost narcissist about how he wanted things his way. But what the Army did in those 5 years is they smoothed those rough edges. And Ryan truly became an amazing man out of these past 5 years. Truly, we looked at him with such amazement and just such different eyes to him. He was no longer this narcissist, gangly little boy. He was this strength of a man. And though they made fun of his height, which was about 5'6", anybody that you ask in his battalion or anywhere else, he walked like he was taller because he walked with confidence. And Ryan would show all of his strength in the way he would project his body. So as much as that was a deficit maybe to him in his ability to be taller, he really showed and oozed confidence. And that confidence came from just so much effort on his part to be everything he could be, and more. And so by the time he got to be into the 82nd Airborne, he was already deployed. His first deployment was not even really, he probably hadn't been in the armed forces 2 years. And he deployed on his first tour to Afghanistan. That tour lasted almost 9 months. I mean, we barely got him out of basic training. And by the fall, he was already headed into, I guess it was that same year, he was headed into Afghanistan. He was gone almost 9 months. And that was a rough time. He really had to grow during that time, because that was a time where he was seeing the real world that he wanted to see. And it wasn't
he went boot, jump school, airborne, Afghanistan, boom, boom, boom.
It was amazing. Every time we talked to him, he was doing a new training. Every time. You know, I took him, he asked for his 17th birthday in April. He asked to go for his first parachute jump. So he's like, Mom, listen. My 18th birthday. Now listen, I want to jump, and I'm going to be preparing myself to do this in military. So I want to go try it out. So he strapped on with his best friend, Ryan, who he grew up with in childhood, and and Tyler went. And he and his dad, we took them there to a jump school, and they strapped Ryan into parachutes. And then both of them jumped out of the plane with instructors. And so they were attached, each one to an instructor. So Ryan came down, and we found the footage the other day of the video of him coming down with it on his helmet, you know, and it was amazing. So, you know, it's like he did his first jump before military. He was really playing it. Tommy went into parachute school, where he went into airborne. One day I looked at his body, and it was completely black and blue. And I said, Ryan, what is going on with you? He goes, Mom, now listen to me. Remember how I wanted to parachute so much? Not so much anymore, because now they're making us jump at night, and I never hit correctly. And I'm always bruised up because I always hit something wrong. And he's like, so I'm really dreading going to my last jump and here in a few days. We're all trying to, like, we don't want to do it anymore. We're tired of jumping. And I laughed and laughed, because he was so preparing himself. Now he doesn't want to do that anymore. So by the time he came out of 82nd, he was really vying to get into something that would be in special forces. And so as he moved onward, he was always looking for the next training. He had just finished French class and thought he was going to deploy maybe over to Africa or somewhere this year earlier. And yet nothing was deployable. He wasn't deployable yet. He kept trying. He was on every list volunteering to deploy. Because Ryan really, I begged him not to go on this last deployment. I begged him not to. I said, listen to me, son. Let them tell you got to go. Don't just sign up for everything. Why are you doing this? I want you to meet up with me in North Carolina, and we'll get an Airbnb house. Your brother will come. His wife will come. Your wife will come. And we'll all hang out together with my new husband, and we'll all get to know each other. And I said, wait, and I'll meet up with you at the end of August. In fact, August 26th, 27th, 28th. Let's meet up. Oh, Mom, I've just finished up this French training. No, I don't know that I can do that, Mom. You know what? I might be deploying anytime, Mom. That boy went and deployed the week before I was supposed to meet up with him. And that's the very weekend he passed. So Ryan, I begged him, I said, please, Ryan, don't go. And he looked at me and he said, now listen to me, Mom. I have trained and I am prepared for any mission that I'm sent on. I cannot waste time sitting around here doing nothing when I'm ready to go. He said, I'll be back in no time. Just watch the news and you'll see the shit show that's going to happen. And he said, that's where I'm going to be. And that was Ryan's own words. And I said, Ryan, I love you, son. Keep telling me where, give me any kind of information you can as you're on your way. And he did. And Ryan wound up, they flew him into Germany, coming out of the States. They flew him to Germany. And then he went on in from there to, I don't think they took him to Yemen. I think they took him straight on in to Afghanistan. And so, he hadn't been there more than a week. And I heard from him, and I guess he was calling in to, maybe his wife. I heard from him on Tuesday of that week. And I had been sending him pictures. I had gotten married. The day he deployed, I got married the next day. And I would not have anyone come to the wedding because Ryan couldn't come. And the reason I wouldn't do that is my boys mean everything to me. And if Ryan couldn't come because he was wanting to deploy so bad, I begged him. We started out in December trying to get him to do it. Mom, I might deploy then. You don't know. You don't know. They're talking about it. Okay, we'll move it to Labor Day weekend. I don't know, Mom. It could happen, couldn't happen. Okay, either I'm, going to do a meet mark or I'm going to be coming to your wedding. I don't know which way I'm going to deploy one time or another. I was like, okay, look, end of August. I know you're not deploying then, right? Well, probably not. So that's why how all this happened, that I was going to get together with him at the end of August. So once he's over there, I'm sending him pictures of the wedding, and it was on the beach, just my husband and I and the pastor, because I refused to have anybody else there. So I'm sending these to Ryan and Tyler, and I'm posting them for people on Facebook. And I sent him our honeymoon pictures, and we had just gotten back from our honeymoon, and we'd probably been in the States for 4 days. And during that time on Tuesday, I got a picture from Ryan. He had sent me one sentence from Germany just saying we've landed in Germany. And I said, okay, I know where he's at right there. And then on Tuesday, he sent me the famous picture, and he just put the words, everything is fine. I love you, Mom. And that was on Tuesday.
Last communication you had with him, Paula?
That was the last information, because I'd sent him the pictures. He knew I got married. He saw that. He knew the honeymoon. He'd seen a few pictures of the honeymoon, because then after that, he responded on Tuesday. And, there was 5 guys that went with him, different divisions. They handpicked them all. Some of them came out of his battalion that were doing the PSYOPs mission. PSYOPs is what he wound up doing in 9th Battalion. And that's what he absolutely loved doing. To him, it was the ultimate job. He chose not to be a commissioned officer so he could be boots on the ground. And he said to me long ago, he said, Mom, I don't want to be an officer because I'll be away from the men. And I always want to be near the men, because that's where it's at. The officer is always further away from the men and always has to be not able to communicate and hang out with the guys as like I can do if I'm non-commissioned. He said, so I'm always going to do that. So when he got to be staff sergeant, that's about as good as you can get, to still be boots on the ground and with the men. And so some of the guys that deployed with him were from the PSYOPs. And so they were there with him through that time, and they took turns. Ryan is given credit along with them for at least, for Ryan, 3,000 souls that he personally would have put through the gates to get them onto the planes. There was probably 15,000 those 5 guys ran through in less than a week.
And just so the viewers know, Ryan was there for the evacuation of the airport in Afghanistan, correct?
Yes, of course. So they're at the Abbey Gate. The PSYOPs unit that was sent so that those who were coming through that Abbey Gate, the only gate that people were coming through, the only airport people could get to for this evacuation, there my son was with Marines and all kinds of personnel. But those PSYOPs guys were the ones checking the papers, determining who went and who did not go. It's like playing God, first of all, with what they had to do. And I can't imagine the mindset of Ryan or anybody else that had to decide who went and who didn't.
And there's thousands of people there at the gate.
Thousands of people pushing through that long tunnel gate area. And so they had to keep those people back all the time. And what a PSYOPs unit would be doing at that time also was trying to keep control. And how do you keep controlling chaos? Well, you obviously as best you can. And yet, how do you control having the enemy allow who they're going to allow through that gated area,
right,
and call them a friend?
Right.
So the guy that came through there with the vest on that had the bombs on him, with all of the shrapnel that came out of there, was responsible for killing not just 13 uniformed, but Americans and those who were seeking citizenship in our country and other countries. Many people lost their lives that day. Ryan was one of them. And Ryan fought 2 hours to stay alive because he promised me that he promised me he would be safe and he would come home. That's why he sent me those words. That's why he sent that picture. Ryan wasn't supposed to die that day. None of them were. Had we had the right people doing the right job and had pushed back our enemy and given us more time, we had 20 years on the ground with this whole thing. What is it that made us have to scamper out of there so fast with our tail between our legs, to letting the enemy tell us how it's going to be? At the end of 20 years, there was not a necessity to get out of there that fast. We are the greatest nation on earth. We have the greatest military force in the world, hands down. Our men and women walk into any harm's way with the idea that they will give their life at any time. Ryan is no different. Ryan would lay his life down again and again, knowing the consequences of what has happened, because it saved lives. We taught him well that he is to make a difference in this world, and he is to take charge when he is given the opportunity to do so. And Ryan did that. My question is, why expose our military and Americans and those soon to be Americans to such danger, knowing the enemy is not going to give them the right treatment for the escape that we're doing after 20 years? We are not to be escaping after 20 years. We are to be managing till the end of 20 years. This all started because we were definitely in the right at what we were doing when we went over there. How long we were over there is a question mark. But the fact that we are coming out of there should have been done in a better, more managed way by our military officials. I do not blame anyone in the uniform. I blame those who pressured with political agendas to make this more than what it should have been. It was a military action that deserved military strategy. Ryan didn't grow up as a young child not knowing that you can't let the enemy know your plans. You cannot let the enemy call you and tell you how it's going to be.
Right.
You must be able to take control of the situation, especially when you're the most powerful nation in the world. That is what my anger burns, and those of this nation burns. We are not a weak nation. We are only weak if we allow ourselves to be weak. And our men and women that fight are not weak. Ryan and those who stood to try to save lives did their job, and they would live with the consequences of whatever happened if they did not do their job well. But those men and women were doing their job well. And I want to know, I want America to hear who is responsible, who will stand up and say, it is my fault. It is my fault for making that such a debacle, that it happened in such a way that we lost not just military men and women, we lost Americans and those who were coming to be Americans. We still left behind Americans. And we say that's a success. Well, it may have been the
still there to
second.
this day too. And we've done nothing about that. We still have Americans over there.
This may have been the second biggest airlift in all time. But I want you to know, it did not have to end the way it ended in any way. There was not a necessity for us to run and hightail it out of there so fast that we couldn't finish the job. That is my issue with this whole crazy mess. Is Ryan lost his life, and it was not necessary for him to have lost his life. We could have controlled that gate and not let our enemy control that gate. And we could have seen who was coming in and out of that gate better than it was done by thousands of people pushing through. Our military has order. They have the responsibility to protect, and they will do that. But for Ryan, all they're trying to do is to try to their best at that time to control thousands of people pushing, coming in. And outside the gate, we have our military who is no longer out there because our weapons are on the ground out there with the enemy having their hands on it. Tell me, who in America can tell me that that's how we run our country? That is not how we run our country.
It's disgraceful, and it still is, and it's unbelievable. Lita, did you want to jump in there?
No, she's doing a good job.
Yeah, Paul, you're doing great.
Yeah, Paula, it's
I know one of the things you and I kind of talked about, and I know in the correspondence on Messenger in the group, you put a nice piece together about remembering Ryan. How do you want the American people to remember Ryan as? I mean, that's one of the things we talk about.
Well, one of the things that we are hoping very much is to begin to honor the military. And on my part, every American could do this on their part, especially if they're not a military family, is to help by giving these military families R&R when we can. If we have extra condos, extra houses where we can let the families have a downtime. We're offering one of our condos down here that was designated for Ryan to inherit from me as a place for military families from the 9th Battalion to come down and take an R&R as soon as they can get off leave. That's one thing Americans could easily do, is we could help our military. It's a very simple thing to do. How can we help our military? Give them a break when they get a break, and give them a chance to go somewhere and just not charge them a penny. Just let them have a chance to just unwind. First of all, that's one thing. Secondly, I'm looking at starting a foundation in Ryan's name, because I want us to be able to honor those junior ROTCs, those potential military men and women who are going to be coming in to stand and take his place. And I want them to be encouraged. And any money or source of money that will come from that will be to help those children graduating from high school, Gibbs High School and other high schools who have merit, honor, to have a little bit of money to start out when they go to basic training and need to buy something. Most of it's provided, but a lot of it wasn't. And I remember Ryan being thankful when we took him to supply stores and bought comforts for him. things to help him, the right kind of socks that he really liked, or something else. So we will be doing that in
Just went through that phase, Paula.
Let me tell you something. Ryan was always thankful when he said, "Oh, I want that right there because that's going to be better than what I get." So he was always pushing the envelope. His hair pushed the envelope. You know, he had that swayed back hair. He wore sunglasses to work out, and his hat turned backwards. Ryan was as cool as he tried to be, and he tried to be cool. So anytime
I
he
miss
could
those
find-
OD green socks. Those things keep you warm in the winter.
Yeah, well, Ryan would find ways to improve how he had to be out there roughing it with boots on the ground. So he was something. So that's another way we're going to do. We'll be starting a foundation for in Ryan's honor, and it will be helping those young seniors coming out who are truly dedicated as Ryan was, with good morals, good merit. And that will start at his high school. So anybody could do that across the nation, is to sponsor those who are beginning their journey with a merit
Definitely wanna
scholarship.
follow you with that so we can help contribute.
Yes,
Because you're absolutely
I
right.
will
I'm
be.
just going through my son's boot camp. It's sadly enough, and you guys know military families here, there's kids coming out of there that don't have the money, that don't have the family that show up for that. You know, it's just
Yes,
sad to see, and they're well deserving. They're there for their country.
Mhm.
And so
Yes.
I really appreciate what you just said, that foundation. That's going to be a great thing.
yes. Ryan would be appreciative of that, along with us honoring his 9th Battalion with they will come down here free on their R&R anytime they would like. And they have at least 1 week's vacation, and there's several of them. And so we will be looking to do that. Anybody could help military families like this wherever we are. And we just feel like this will be the beginning of something that we need to show more honor. We need to show more respect to those who are in uniform. We need to show more of love and care toward them and support. They are out there facing things that we here are in a bubble about. And when we all who are travelers like myself go out there in the world, we know how blessed we truly are in America. We know that we have so much to be grateful for. And so we must be thanking our armed troops for keeping us safe like this. We have to be helping their families in any way we can, just any way we can say thank you. And I know Ryan would appreciate that. And those who are military families know that those little bits and pieces of people that we saw, thousands of people lining the roads to honor Ryan as he came in to be received in Knoxville. We saw thousands of people that showed up for burial and for his funeral. There are many people who want to do something, and these are things we can do very easily.
That is great. I told you I went to Corporal Sanchez's funeral in Logansport, and the same thing. And then, of course, I watched what I could of Ryan's on social media. So it was amazing to see the outpour of love and support that they received, and very well deserving. I mean, they, like you said, they gave their lives for our freedom and for this country. And we owe that gratitude, like I told you today, to all of you, your family. Belita across from me, her and her son and family, and you and Ryan and your family and your son Ryan. So it's, yeah, keep in touch with us on this foundation, because it's something we'll definitely get behind.
We do a lot of fundraisers around here, and this is something Valita has something similar up here for her son, and we've helped out with that, and we love to get involved a little bit with yours also.
So you can count us in once you get that foundation going.
I don't know if we're losing her or.
He's walking outside.
We have to play
Paula, can you still hear
one
us?
second.
Okay.
She's out in the garage now, it looks like. You're getting a lot of
Yes,
love
you
from
were-
this end from folks. He's trying.
One of the things Paula talked about was how he kept volunteering, how Ryan volunteered for everything. And one of the articles I read was about from his peers saying he was the first one to stand up for his country. He was always volunteering. So that was one of the things even his peers talked about a lot about Ryan.
Well, as they will tell you, Ryan lit up a room with his smile. Ryan also had a smirk, though. And that smirk meant that he was challenging you, or he had a joke, or he had something funny he thought was funny he was going to say. So Ryan had a great sense of humor. And I love that about him. That's one of my life philosophies is live and do a lot to help de-stress you. And so Ryan was ahead of the rest of the group meetings. Do you know that his call number is TPT 9000? There are many people that are getting tattoos with that.
All you're cutting in and out. The last thing we heard was TPT 9000 and people are getting tattoos of that.
Yes. So the reason being is that one night he was out in the woods training, and he thought his call number was the number that was TPT 9000 for a different reason. So when in the middle of the dark in the woods, he called out his call number, and all of the leaders thought, who's saying that? The call number should be a lot shorter, very short. Why is this guy saying TPT 9000? So they gave him a really hard time. But they also allowed him to use that number the rest of his career as his actual call number.
Wow.
So he is known as TPT 9000 even to his death. It is his actual call number. And so his battalion, many of the battalion got TPT 9000 tattooed on, along with other people. And of course, I'm not a real big, huge fan of tattoos, but I can tell you in the armed forces, that is not to be something taken lightly. So there are several people who are also in society that have also said that, because that reminds us that even if you are the most confident guy in the world, you can call out the wrong thing and it can still be considered to be okay and accepted by your peers and leaders as the way it's going to be from then on. That's Ryan's ability to change things. That's
fantastic. Coming from an old commo guy, that number's way too long to be yelling across the radio all the time. But yeah, he got it. That's fantastic.
He sure did.
9,000.
Yep.
Go ahead, Tim.
Next, well, Paula, again, we can't thank you enough for coming on, and we, like I talked to you today, everyone's seen Ryan's face on TV, and it's easy to see that face and not put a story behind it, and that's what we wanted to do here, was put a story behind the face. This young warrior, Ryan was 23. He's just a baby, and like you talked about earlier, the accountability behind it, but most importantly, we wanted to put a story behind the face. So we really appreciate it. And I remember you saying, like you said earlier, one of the last things he said was, "Mom, it's going to be a shit show. Just you watch." So, and that was what, a couple days prior to that?
Before he left, I tried to talk Ron out of going, and that's when he told me, "Mom, listen to me. It'll be a shit show, but just watch TV and you're going to see where I'm at." And sure enough, it was definitely all of that plus, right. Because the way it was handled by our leadership in a political push is what the problem is here. It was not so much a military push, it was a political push that made us falter in what the strategies we needed to have on the ground with those men and women doing their job and trying to get out as many people as possible. And then we have a calendar, a time frame to do it in that we cannot meet. And now what we all watched on TV was, how are they going to get this done? How in the hell are they going to get all these people out on the deadline that our president says they're going to be out of there? How are they supposed to do that? We did our best, but is it possible that we left behind Americans? Are we still going to leave? In all of history, did we ever ever want to leave a man behind or a woman behind or our mission not accomplished without saying we failed somewhere. And yet we say and hear from our own president that this was a success. 90% success was one of the words he said. Well, 90% doesn't make up the 10% that we left behind.
No.
Ryan would have never came home on that plane as the last man home if he knew his mission was not accomplished. These men and women coming back, full body parts, but they have not the mind. It does a number on our kids that are serving in the military right now to know that they can just half-ass do something and then be told, great job, when they know they watched people they left behind as they flew off. That is not America. That is not America.
Well, the military's motto is no man left behind and mission
Right.
accomplished. And obviously we agree with you that it wasn't accomplished. We've all seen the photos on TV where people were literally hanging off the planes as they were flying away. So
It's disgraceful to me, the ending of it.
but Paula, definitely stay in touch with us. Contact us on the foundation. We'd like to be involved in the foundation, help out as much as we can. Again, we can't tell you enough. Thank you for taking the time with us this evening and sharing your message about your son, Ryan Christian Knauss. I'm gonna let everybody else
Valida,
talk.
you want to talk a few here?
Paula, I just want to say thank you from one mother to another. My son's name was Ryan too, so listening to you talk, there's so many similarities, and it's just so, it's neat to hear your story and your son's story, and we really, really appreciate it. And is there anything that anyone can do for you? I know people ask me that and I'm like, what the heck? No, but if there ever is, just let us know if we can do anything for you.
Well, the biggest thing I'm trying to do is just stay busy right now. Just continually trying to keep my head from sitting too long right now. And I would love to be able to tell you that I have a full night of sleep, but I've yet to accomplish things like that very well. And that's because I remember how I was told about Ryan's passing. We all held our breath. I knew as a mom on Thursday something was wrong. I called Alina. I said, Alina, listen to me. I don't mean to alarm you, but I feel like there's something wrong. There has been a bomb that has exploded, but have you heard from Ryan? And she said, no, not yet, but I don't listen to the news. It's okay. I said, listen to me. I think there's something wrong. I need you to see if you can get a hold of me as fast as you can, as soon as you hear from Ryan. And all night long, they kept saying it was only Marines. But my heart, I can tell you, my heart knew something was wrong and I could not rest. I could not settle down. And I said that night, I began to pray and pray and pray. And in that night, there is 7 hours difference between Kabul and where I live in Florida. And at the very time that I would begin to worry that afternoon, Ryan passed. Ryan died. The moment I began to say there's something wrong, immediately my spirit said, they told me when he passed, and I know when I began to worry. And it was the time he was fighting for his life. And I can only tell you, mom to mom, military family to military family, it's the worst feeling in the world to ever hear your child die, knowing that they have still the next day not told you that there's any army involved in that explosion, knowing though you haven't heard from your child, knowing he would call if he could, knowing that the next day they're talking to army. No, it was just one now, thinking there's 6,000 troops there. How could it just be my boy that would be that one? From mom to mom, that is, my son was the first to call me that morning. I brought out my Bible, and the day before I sent Ryan passages from scripture. And I tried to encourage him while he was away. And I had no idea. I had no idea. But I got up that morning to have devotions. And I was thinking of Ron, and I was beginning to pray. And my son Tyler calls me. He first texted and said the one word your mom, you never want to hear. He just said, Mom. And then he called. And the words out of his mouth were three things. Mom, Ryan is dead. 4 words that will forever, ever change my life. My own son had to tell me first, and I cannot tell you the grief of finally knowing it was my Ryan. It was my Ryan. I don't wish that for someone else, but I didn't want it to be my Ryan. So with disbelief, no one could convince me. I had to see him in the casket, even if I only got a few minutes. I had to see him for myself. And it was a long time before I got a chance to see him. But my Ryan, God is a good God. And God sent me a vision of my Ryan in the casket. And he was smiling. And I said, Ryan, why are you smiling? This should have happened. I don't know where you're going. And he just kept smiling. And God gave me a devotion today that confirmed my son is with him. He gave me just confirmation in James of who Ryan is and what he was. And I praise my Lord. I praise God that we have good men and women who we can thank God that they're standing in the gap for us, even if it's our own children. I thank God for our children who have been raised to do what is right, to be honorable,
Amen.
to know what is right and wrong, and to still stand when others would not. I thank God for the men and women that came home safe, but I pray for their minds, what they saw, the people they left behind, what the burden that is for them, the guilt they must feel. I pray God would give just such an anointment on those troops that had to go and see all of that and be part of that and lose some of their own men and women. I cannot tell you that Ryan would have not changed. He would have changed a thing. But my son can lay down his weapon now, and he has peace because he can do no more to help. He is finished. And may God be given the glory.
Yes,
May he be given the praise for having a chance to call him Ryan Christian Knauss. He is my little boy who grew up to be a great man. And it is with God's hand that he is now safe again. So I give him glory. But I feel such.
I want to give thanks to God for giving this country and this world 2 parents like you two to raise children that way, to give this country, as she said, individuals that will stand in the gap, because it starts with you guys. My brother and I both played soldier all of our life and did the same. And that stuff's brought into you by your parents to be the honorable type of person it takes to do that. And God bless both of you for doing the right thing with your children. And it's just amazing.
He is with God, and that gives you peace. And we appreciate you for raising him that way, because like Kevin said, that they have to be strong from birth. They have to get that foundation.
Right.
And you had to give that to him. And you're right. He probably wouldn't have changed a thing. It's the kind of man he sounds like. he would have went even if he knew the outcome was going to be the same.
100%.
And
Yeah.
we thank you and him for that very much.
Yes. My little boy turned into be a true man of valor. And I don't say that out of bias. I say that because I am in awe of who he became. I am in awe of the purpose that he was driven from birth to do. He accomplished in 23 years what many of us don't accomplish in a lifetime of living. He lived that lifetime out in 23 short years. I feel that he was robbed of his life that could have been, but I tell you the truth, he couldn't have lived it any more courageously and awesome that he did for 23 of them. I can't imagine the potential that these children who now are young men and women would have had, but they are now not having to ever take up the arms again for our country. They can lay those arms down and have peace and rest. And Ryan lies now in the very hills of Arlington, where he went on his senior trip with his family to go before basic training. He wanted to pick anywhere in the world, Ryan, you want to go. As a little boy, I told both my kids, pick anywhere in the world, and on your senior trip, we will go there. And Ryan, on his choice, picked to go to Washington, D.C., to walk among the museums again that we had taken him as a small child, to remember the history of our nation, to look at the great monuments of great men in history. And he went and he walked the hills of Arlington to see great men of valor and great women of valor who lie there. And now my son, who we just buried last week, lies among those great men and women who he admired so much to go for his senior trip. He didn't waste his time at the beach. He went with purpose, even on his own senior trip. May God be given glory to give drive and such purpose for such a young man to know exactly what he needed to do. From the very hour he was born until the very hour he died, they told me he died with such an expression of peace on his face that he never screamed out. He never cried out, that he had calmness on his face, even when they were trying to revive him and he was coming in and out of consciousness. They said his face was full of peace. May God be given glory, because one of my prayers was that I could hold my boy's hand. If no one else was there, please God, tell me someone held his hand in his last hours. God, send a messenger to tell me these things. And then we got the answers we needed to know that Ryan had loved ones near him from his battalion, from his friendships over there, that stood by him and told him and prayed over him and let him go. After 2 hours of fighting, they had to let him go. And when I looked at his casket, all I could do was weep, because my little boy was no more. May God have mercy on the souls of our military families, especially for those who have given up one of their own in this great nation that we still claim freedom. Freedom is truly not free. And I can testify this to my own son's life. Freedom is not free. It is shed by the blood of many. And we must not waste and squander such freedom and such sacrifice in this nation, as we have tended to do in the past years, as we continue to go forward with all kinds of divisions. We must unite as one nation. We must come together, and we must recognize that all of what our nation stands for must be upheld and revered. Many people in other countries would love to have the opportunity and the great opportunities we have. Many Afghans are now able to say, who have reached this country, that they are able to be free finally from much of what they have dealt with. So we are very, very grateful for what Ryan stood for and what many men and women are still standing for in the uniform. So we give glory to God for those who are still here to keep protecting us.
He sounds like he was a true God's soldier here on earth. And we're thankful for him as well. And we do appreciate you sharing your story. I know how hard it is. One of the things when you keep saying that my little boy, I remember rubbing Ryan's hair, my Ryan's hair, and I bet you do the same thing when he was little. And you could smell the sweat when they're little kids running around outside playing. And when he passed, I could remember that smell as a little baby. And it reminds me of that when you say my little boy, because you just remember him as a little, my son was blonde hair and blue eyed, and you remember that sweet little innocent face, but the determination is there. And it sounds the same for your Ryan as well. And we love him and you for that.
Well, my Ryan was blonde haired and blue eyed also. And he was the most toughest kid you could ever imagine. So there was always a skin nose or a skin an elbow, a skin knee, something on him was always skin up because he was always on an adventure. And in that way in his life, he learned how to grow to be truly strong and very, very, honestly, very, very capable of doing all that he did in leadership. We watched him 3 months ago say the best man speech at his brother's wedding. It was the last time Ryan was with all the family. And I looked at Ryan as he was escorting me down, practicing the night before. And I said, now, Ryan, listen to me carefully. Don't embarrass your brother with explicits. And don't you dare say something that's going to embarrass your brother, because there's a lot of pastors in this Weiss family that's going to be listening and being there. So don't embarrass him. And Ryan looked at me and he gave me his little grin and his little smirk. And he said, hey, Mom, I got this. I got this. Listen, y'all don't realize it, but I do this all the time in the armed forces. I have to talk to my men all the time. And I have to tell them how things are. And so I'm really good at this. And so Ryan got up for his best man speech that night, the next night. And he stood there. And in all of his glory, where his brother didn't even make him wear a suit jacket because he had such a good looking physique, his brother allowed him not to wear a suit jacket. In all of his glory with his sunglasses on his head at the entire wedding time, because he's cool with sunglasses on even at night. In all of his glory with his microphone in his hand, Ryan gave the best speech of his life at his best friend's wedding, which was titled His Best Friend. And we all watched in just absolute amazement at the man he had become. And I'm telling you this because Ryan started out determined. And as he worked his way into life, being part of the armed forces truly pushed him to be exactly what he needed to be. It provided him the training and the capability to be a really good soldier and an awesome man. And so we honor the military also for helping us raise our son to be more than just a boy, more than just my little boy, but to be truly a man. But he will always be called my little boy, always.
Absolutely.
Well, Paula, it has been an honor speaking with you tonight and sharing your stories. It's just amazing. A true hero. God bless you and your family. Tim's going to stay in contact with you via emails, and when you get the foundation up and running, we'll gladly do what we can to help. And personally, I'm I was 4 years Army. Timmy was too. And individuals, real quick, I'll get to this. I know individuals like your son, they're a rare breed and they're special. And I had a buddy like that I was stationed with, that you knew you have soldiers and you have individuals that are a notch above. And things got tough, you knew who to turn to. And I guarantee you that's so many soldiers looked up to your son, and they're just he's buried in the right place with all the heroes. He's home there with all of them, and God bless him. And I thank God every day for individuals like that, and the military and moms like you too. That's what keeps this country free, and that's what's going to keep this country free as we move forward. No matter how shitty it gets, there's always going to be some kid with the blonde hair and the sunglasses and the quirky smile that's going to go kick somebody's ass for us when need be. And I thank God for those people, because without them, we would not be standing to this day. This country would not. So, you got anything else to say? Paula, thank you so much.
Yeah, Paula, thank you again. I told you, not only is he our hero, but he's our Christian brother. And
Okay.
we want to honor him and remember him, and we want to be part of that foundation. So keep in touch with us so we can push that out for you and continue his memory through that.
Real quick, you got a ton of love on this page. I don't know if you got on there and look, but some point in time, you're welcome to jump on there and look at that. But
We'll
Lots
send her the
lots
link.
of love yous and God bless yous and everything like that for you and your son. So on behalf of the whole group, thank you so much, dear. And we will hear from you soon. Okay.
Well, thank you to you and your audience of getting the word out of how important it is for us to respect the military and the ones who wear the uniform, whether it be a police officer or those who are in the military or anyone else who wears the uniform. It's so important that we respect those that are doing their job and doing it well, and that we give them all the opportunity in the world to have the safest, most trained, most doable situations. And so that's what angers us as Americans right now, is in that particular situation, it was not necessary what happened. And that word needs to get out, because we don't want to continue to lose our young men and women over situations that it is not necessary to lose them in. They are truly, we must stand in the gap for them and speak for them and try to rally for them when they cannot speak for themselves in their positions.
That's right, because Ryan stood in that gap for us.
Yes.
Amen.
Thank
Paula,
you
have a
all.
wonderful evening, dear. Thank you so much.
Thank you. God bless you, Paula.
Yes, thank you all.
Thank you all for tuning in. Love you guys. You will hear from us soon.